I can't quite drive it, but we have an Acura NSX in here. It's a
Okay.
2022, and it's a hybrid. So it's got 3 electric motors with a twin turbo V6
3 electric motors.
and a twin turbo V6 in the back. It's pretty wicked. You'll go 0 to 60 in about 2 seconds.
Oh,
Yeah, because since it's twin turbo, the thing about turbocharged engines is there's something called turbo lag. You have
Okay.
to let it spool up to then hit the power. And so
Okay.
there's a lag there.
Okay. Okay.
But the electric portion of the car makes up for that lag. So you're hitting full electric power, and then the turbos take over and kick in and complete the rest of the drive.
Okay.
And so there's no lag. So it's that instant torque,
Okay.
which I really like, of course.
Hey, my name is Steve Hinton, and I serve as a pastor and author.
And I'm your co-host, Matthias. I serve as a personal trainer and a volunteer at my local church.
We want to welcome you to The Man Identity, a podcast that is dedicated to calling up young men into purposeful manhood, which is ultimately found in Jesus Christ and being made in the image of God.
In a culture that is often deliberately set against young men, we're here to intentionally build hope, clarity, and strength into the hearts of these men who are searching for purpose. Together, we will face tough issues head on, throw down some weekly challenges, and have some fun along the way.
Because solid manhood is not automatic, but rather it's a choice. We're here to walk alongside you and encourage you to live out your authentic identity in being made in the image of God for a purpose larger than you have ever imagined.
So join us now for another episode of The Man Identity. Yeah, Steve, I don't know anything about cars. I didn't know anything about, I know some turbos and what they look like, but that's about it. And so when he was talking about the EVs and like the electric motors kind of kick in and fill in for some kind of lag. I didn't know what he was talking about, but it's just 0 to 2 seconds, just boom, going 60. So I thought that was an interesting fact. I don't know anything about cars. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you're talking to today?
It's funny, Matthias, both you and I would kind of be in this camp of we're not that smart when it comes to mechanics and things of that nature. Let me back up a little bit and remind our audience, whether it's the video audience on YouTube or the audio on podcasts and Spotify. And again, we would love it if everybody would subscribe, download, like, and share and things like that. But the point of the Man Identity, we kick this off in September as a serious deal that we really want to encourage young men to realize who they are, that they're created in the image of God and they have purpose. And we want to call them up in our culture that is putting them down. But we also made the point when we kick this off that every now and then, every 3, 4, maybe 5 episodes, we just want to do an episode that's laid back. Our first one was me and 3 older guys, the older wise guys in classic rock. And, that was just a fun episode, but we had some life lessons as well.
Right.
So here we are. Matthias, the truth is that even though you and I don't know a whole lot about cars, and we wouldn't necessarily be car guys, the truth is that there are a ton of car guys out there. And even if men are not necessarily car guys, I'm guaranteeing that there are going to be more men than women that are interested in this subject. And that is not, that's not trashing women. It's just different. And I know that there are a lot of ladies out there who are all into cars and, they're grease monkeys and they, I get it. But they would be the atypical. And Matthias, it kind of reminds me of a funny story with me and Debbie about cars and speed. A number of years ago when we had a ministry in Northern Indiana, and we had been visiting her family in Missouri. And we were driving back to Northern Indiana, and I think we were on Interstate 70. And this is back when all the kids were little. So I was driving a minivan, and we're going north on Interstate 70, and I'm on the right side of the road. And this Porsche comes up, and I can see it coming up behind us, and it just comes up and it passes me and goes on. And it's just incredibly fast. And Debbie's first thought was, oh my goodness, that's scary. I looked over, I said, my first thought was, oh my goodness, I wish I could drive that fast.
Right. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Well, that's what we know, that it's typical that a lot of guys are more interested in cars than girls, whether it's big cars, fast cars, or whatever. So I figured that would be a good thing to do today. And I love our guest who is a car guy, Marshall Schoen. He's He's a smart guy. He actually, in addition to just being a smart guy, he has a degree from Ozark Christian College, so he's got some theology. But he manages a place in Houston called the Shop Club. And there are three other businesses like this, one here in Houston, one in Dallas, and one in Seattle. And Marshall referred to it as a country club for car people. And it's a deal where you could store your high-end vehicle there. I remember I was there, and there's a couple Lamborghinis and things of that nature where you can store your cars there. You can work on your cars there. They have tools, they have bays, they have car shows. So Marshall works for the one here in Houston, the Shop Club Houston. He also has his own YouTube channel simply called Garage Time, and we'll have this in the show notes. But Marshall's the guy who builds engines, who knows cars. So it was good for me to sit down with him, and I went to the shop, and we're up there in one of the upstairs conference room looking over at part of the bay. And I asked him some questions, just some fun questions about cars, and then some life lesson questions, and then just some practical things. The different types of oil, because a lot of guys, what is the difference between synthetic and regular oil? Things of that nature. But it was a good conversation, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping that it will be something that will be a blessing for our audience today, those who are watching YouTube, and everybody else who's doing it on Apple, Spotify, and things of that nature. So the car show, things that are fun, things that are interesting, and things that you need to know. So let's roll a clip on it.
Let's roll it.
Marshall,
That's me.
my first car was a 1979 Pontiac Le Mans.
Oh, it's a good car, actually.
Well, actually, whether it was a good car or not is beside the point. But here's the story. My dad had it, and he was going to get another car. And he figured out he can get more money out of it by, selling it to me than by, doing a trade-in on it.
Sure.
But it was a Pontiac 1979 Le Mans. It had some rust on the hood already. But you know what? It was my car. Yeah. And it was my car that I could do with what I wanted to. I put some stuff on the inside. I put an old Pioneer stereo system in it. It was my car. So that's what I was excited about. It wasn't the coolest thing, but it was mine.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part about anybody's first car is like you finally have reached that point.
Yeah.
And I think it's everybody's rite of passage to customize your car whenever you get it. Because I did the same thing when I got a car. Is the first thing you do, sound system.
Yeah,
That's what everybody messes with.
Yeah.
I don't care if the seats are torn or anything like that. I got to have good sound systems.
You are exactly right.
Yeah, for sure. I did the same thing.
I got a cheap Pioneer stereo in it. Now, it's funny. I didn't know what the Le Mans was until I saw the movie about 5 years ago, a Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah.
But that's like a massive race. Is it in Paris or where is that?
So the 24-hour of Le Mans, it's over in Europe, but it's a 24-hour race. And so that's kind of what Ford versus Ferrari was about, is Ford trying to get into that 24-hour race, which was mostly dominated by Ferrari at the time. But the other major manufacturers participated in it,
Okay.
Lamborghini and Aston Martin, places like that. But Ford wanted to get into the racing world, and that's how Shelby got involved and how Shelby got to the position he is. And
that was actually a good movie.
Yeah, that's still, it's becoming an instant classic.
Is it really?
Especially in the car world. It's one that we'll put on here, like we'll have a movie night here, and we'll watch that as well. So yeah, it's a very good movie.
I thought it was good, not just because of the cars and the history, but just leadership and being a man and overcoming adversity and just pushing.
Well, yeah, you've got that. You've got conflict, which makes any good movie, any good story, right? You got to have conflict. But yeah, it was more of a raw, just we've got to get better. We've got to beat them. And, when Shelby was doing the test drives for the early GTs, that's exactly what it was, is, well, I can feel it and there's something's not right. Wow. And it's convincing people that, and that's why they put all the little pieces of tissue paper all over the car. If you remember that scene, they put little strips of tissue all over the car. And he says, once I hit a certain speed, there's a lift in the front and I can feel it. And so they put the tissues all over the car. And so when he hit that speed, you could see all the tissue stand up. And it's amazing that you can be so in tune with a piece of machinery that you can feel something like that, because when you're going up, right, you're fighting the wind. And so that slows you down. So you got to keep that nose down for the downforce to keep you going. That's
incredibly interesting. So here we are, the Man Identity, and I am on location. Marshall, I've known you for quite a while. I know your heart, your passion where are we? Because Matthias always talks about our viewers, and most of our audience for the Man Identity are listeners. Apple Podcasts, things like that. But Matthias keeps talking about our viewers. So for the viewers today, Marshall, tell us what we've got behind us, what you do, and just what's going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the general manager here at a place called the Shop Club Houston. It's a country club for car people. That's the best way I explain it to people. Instead of hitting golf balls and greens and fairways and things like that, we do cars. So we have car storage options. So for those of you that are watching, all the cars you see here behind us. And if you're a listener, I encourage you to go back and watch the video so you can see all the cars.
There you are. That way we can get more viewers on that as well.
I wasn't going to say it, but here we are. But you'll be able to see in the background all the cars we have here. We're at approximately about 100 cars in here. We have our oldest car is a 1923 Dodge Touring. It's a convertible. And our most recent car, of course, is a 2025 Porsche 718 Spider RS. So over 100 years worth of cars that are in here, from exotics and supercars to daily drivers to weekend cruisers to collectibles. But being a country club for car people, we have member activities and events. We have indoor car washing stations. We have lifts. You can work on your car here. You can build a car here. We have our members lounge, which again, you that are watching, this is one of the conference rooms we have here in the members lounge. But we've got a cigar room, poker table, pool table, full service bar. We have a restaurant in-house called Derby. It's great food. And I eat here every day. Admittedly, I'm a little guilty of that. But so I might be a little biased, but yeah, we have the restaurant here is open to the public. We do tours of the car collection. So it's $15 a person. We have a tour guide that'll walk the floor with you and tell you year, make, model, history, horsepower, any sort of unique fact about the car here in Houston. But we also have a Dallas and a Seattle location. So if any of you are listening or watching from Houston or Dallas or Seattle, I encourage you to visit those locations because we are the newest location here. It's been about a year and a half for us. Dallas was opened in 2021.
Okay.
They've got over 300 cars in storage. Yeah. And they have them on lifts, like triple lifts, 3 high. And they are at capacity. They have a wait list now because they're so full. And Seattle has about 320. And they're in downtown Seattle by Mariner Stadium. Dallas location is by Love Field, kind of Love Airport. And then here in Houston, we're in the Champions Willowbrook area, the northwest side of Houston.
Okay. So most of our episodes here at the Man Identity have a serious topic, but this is one of those, like when we did 4 Older Guys in Classic Rock. This is just a fun episode.
Oh yeah, gotta break it up.
And there are so many guys that love cars and they have car stories. For me, a lot of guys want a fast car, Lamborghini, something like that. For me, I always wanted something big. I remember after I had my Pontiac Le Mans for a couple of years, there was somebody that was selling, a Scout. I don't remember what the year was, but I couldn't afford it. But I wanted something big. And if someone were to ask me, what is your dream car? For me, it wouldn't be like a, hey, my Maserati does 185. I lost my license. Now I don't drive. It would be something big. For our 20th anniversary, Debbie and I went out to Colorado Springs. And we got to the airport, and I had already rented like a midsize SUV or something. And the guy at the desks asked if I wanted additional insurance. And I never get additional insurance. But for some reason that day, I said, yeah, go ahead and give me the additional insurance. And he said, okay. And I'm going to bump you up. And we went out there, and I got a brand new Tahoe.
Nice.
And I thought, this thing's huge.
Yeah.
This thing's nice, leather. And so a dream car for me would be like, I want something big that, I want a tank.
Yeah.
I want a tank with a Bose
nice
leather interiors, and a nice sound system. What about you? If you could have anything or even create it, what would be a dream car for you?
Man, I agree that a lot of people want something fast and sporty. And I was just having this conversation with our mechanic here, and he was like, yeah, exotic cars and fast cars are great, but only on the highway.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you're in the city or whatever, man, what if someone hits you? You're sitting in traffic. Well, it's a fun, fast car, but you're not going anywhere. So is it really that enjoyable?
Yeah.
I
had a guy tell me one time, it's not so much how fast it's how fast can you get to fast, like 0 to 60 and,
Yeah. That kind of that torque, that feel when you hit the gas and you feel it in your chest.
Yeah.
We have a lot of cars here that can do that for sure. Dream car. I would really have to go, we have in here a 1972 Ferrari Dino.
Okay.
And we had talked off this a little bit about it. And that is such an iconic car.
Kind of looks like a James Bond car or something.
Just a little bit. Yeah. But it's Ferrari based. It's a mid-engine V6. And it's an absolute blast to drive. The bad thing is I'm just too tall for it. And
You're a tall boy.
yeah, and so my knees hit the steering wheel, and so I can't quite drive it. But we have an Acura NSX in here. It's a 2022, and it's a hybrid. So it's got 3 electric motors with a twin turbo V6.
3 electric motors
And a twin turbo V6 in the back.
Okay.
So
man, I don't know anything.
yeah, it's pretty wicked. You'll go 0 to 60 in about 2 seconds.
Oh,
Yeah, because since it's twin turbo, the thing about turbocharged engines is there's something called turbo lag. You have to let it spool up to then hit the power. And so there's a lag there.
Okay.
But the electric portion of the car makes up for that lag. So you're hitting full electric power, and then the turbos take over and kick in and complete the rest of the drive.
Okay.
And so there's no lag. So it's that instant torque.
Okay.
Which I really like, of course. That's one of the fastest cars we have in here, but it's also just really futuristic, which I really like. It's a good shape, but again, it is a sports car, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I don't really have like one single car that I'm like, yes, this is a crown jewel of a collection necessarily. Just because every car has their function, big cars, from sporty cars, whatever. So I really like to have a little bit of everything, if possible. But I'm a car builder by hobby, and so I build it, have it fun for a little bit. Yeah, okay, I'm ready for the next one to get the itch, right? So it's not necessarily one that's, again, would be the top of my collection, but something like that, that's an iconic car, something that just has the guts to get you moving, I'd really enjoy.
Okay. So one of your employees or one of the guys you were talking about mentioned the fact that you can only drive fast on the freeway. Well, I agree with that, but I'm also thinking, okay, other than 2 or 3 listeners that we have in Germany, that doesn't mean a whole lot in America. We don't have the Autobahn.
Yeah, we don't have
you
that.
can have a Lamborghini, and I don't know what it is. So my brother came back from Germany one time, and he had some kind of a Porsche or something, and he was on the Autobahn doing 90, and he said, "Steve, 90 on the Autobahn is slow."
It is.
So it's like, why have a Lamborghini when it's like I can't?
Well, it's like you said, it's that how fast can you get there?
Yeah.
It's that torque. It's that adrenaline.
But there's the power in it.
Yeah. So like a Lamborghini Huracan, I had an opportunity to drive one of those a couple months ago, and it's got paddle shift behind the steering wheel.
Okay.
And it's screaming at you as you're going. Is
it loud?
Oh yeah. It depends on the exhaust you put on it, but yes,
Okay.
this one was. And just as you're shifting, you're just hitting the button and it goes shift, 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 and you're just faster,
that
faster, faster,
easy?
faster, faster. Yeah.
So
amazing.
it's not like manual.
No, it's.
Wow.
I think it's you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it's called like a dual clutch system,
Okay.
where it's an automatic or paddle shift. And so like the new Corvettes have those too.
Okay.
Where it is a paddle shift. You can put it in M mode for manual. You can paddle shift it, and so you'll manually shift it up and down with just a click of a button. There's no stick anymore.
Okay. So Marshall, like Formula One cars, they're not actually shifting the stick. Those are
I'm not a big
They're
F1
paddles.
watcher, but I believe they have the paddles. I mean, I may be wrong on that,
right.
but I believe they have the paddles too, just because it's quicker
Okay. Yeah.
shifting.
So, but you do rebuild cars, and it seems like it's a Fiat.
Yeah.
What is it? And you've rebuilt a few of those.
Just a couple, yeah. So, being as tall as I am, for those of you that don't know, I'm on the verge of 6'5". So working on little Italian cars is pretty funny for people. But the Fiats are actually what got me into building cars as a hobby. And, I started out with a 1978 Fiat 124. It was a 2-door convertible. I learned a lot from that car. It's kind of all self-taught. I made mistakes and I learned lessons, and that's just kind of what got me going. But I've built 2 124s. I'm in the process of building my second Fiat 850, which is a rear engine car. I just picked up a third today because I'm a sucker. And it's been sitting in a barn for 47 years. So that's going to be pretty exciting to go through that. I've built a Fiat X19. That was an 85. And I've done a Volkswagen bus. So for those couple German listeners, they can appreciate that. But I've done a VW bus.
And I know some guys that's kind of their niche, that they're into the buses, the VW buses.
It's funny about the car community is once you find something that you're kind of familiar with, you just kind of stick to it.
Okay.
So VW guys, like the air-cooled Volkswagens, that is their life. Air-cooled VW. Same thing with the Fiat people. With me is we have a local Fiat group, and that's all we do is we all help each other on our Fiats. And same thing with the Ferrari club, Lamborghini club,
right.
with Lotus club. We just had the Jaguar club here a few months ago.
Okay.
So you end up coming to the point where you kind of become loyal to a brand just because you're so familiar with how things are operating that you're just in that comfort zone. So.
My brother, who's a great guy, he's actually taller than me, but I'm older than him, and he leads the ministry on renewal, spiritual renewal. But he's a Beamer guy. He's a BMW guy.
BMWs have big following.
They
Porsche too.
It's just interesting to hear his stories and all that. You said something a minute ago that I thought was really cool about the fact that in your process of learning how to rebuild, that you made mistakes. And talk to me, Marshall, maybe not necessarily those mistakes, but there's a man lesson in that.
Oh yeah,
that sometimes guys are afraid of making mistakes and they don't do anything, or they make mistakes and then they just said, I'm done. And yeah, there is a point in time where we realize, okay, this is not the way God gifted me, and maybe I need to find something else. But there's this maturity, man maturity power of saying, I'm going to push through. I'm going to keep doing this. What are some lessons from your own life working with cars, or that guys need to learn when it comes to cars, that just any guy needs to know?
Yeah. So when it comes to building cars, that's very different from just basic car maintenance. But the first car I built, that 78 124, I was putting a new timing belt on it. I didn't have the stuff lined up properly. I went to start it and I locked up the engine. Stuff hit each other, and that was like catastrophic failure. And I ended up having to completely tear the engine down and completely rebuild it because I'd bent some cast iron parts.
Okay.
So once cast iron's bent, you can't put it back. And so I took one of those pieces that were bent and I made a little trophy out of it as a reminder on my shelf. I put on there the biggest idiot award.
Okay,
And,
your shelf here at the shop?
no,
or
at home, in my home garage, because I've learned that if I'm rushing through things, I make those mistakes.
That's a good lesson right there.
So it's rushing through it. I make mistakes. So working on cars and building cars really teaches you patience.
Okay.
Especially with the one I'm working on now. I was ready to put the engine transmission into the car. I was super stoked. But then I realized like some of these rubber boots on the transmission were ripped. And I know that if I put that in the car, it's going to take so much longer to replace it than if I just wait 2 days for the shipping to come in, do it on the bench, and then put it in. And, in the 7 or 8 years I've been building cars, I've really learned that patience. And I think that, of course, more than just the car space of patience, when it comes to family, when it comes to work, when it comes to even our own faith with, we wait upon the Lord, right? And waiting on these things. And even though I'm so excited to get this thing to go and I'm ready to fire it up, and I just got done rebuilding it, that's super exciting, the moment of truth. And then something as silly as a little tiny rubber boot is what's holding me back. But over these years, I've had to learn that patience. It also teaches you, when you get knocked down, you can still get back up and keep going.
Okay.
Back to this first example, that engine, I blew it up, right? Technically catastrophic failure, but I had to tear it down and start over. Even though it was a small thing that I messed up, it ruined everything.
Right.
And I ended up having to tear it all down, but it ended up being a great thing because by tearing down the engine, I got to look at every part and know what everything did.
Wow.
I know everything's purpose. And I was able to use that opportunity of learning to now know what bearings should look like, what piston rods look like, what rings look like, oil pumps, all these things that are built into the engines. I now know how they function and how they all work together. So yes, in the moment I am frustrated. I was rushing things. I'm upset. But it ended up being a great thing because I had to tear it all down and it was forced me to learn it. So even though it's something in the moment, like, man, I failed. I fell down. I got pushed over. It's when you bounce back up or you get back up is when you kind of reflect on that fallen moment and be like, yes, but look at how much I've grown. So rebuilding that engine was the first engine I ever did. And I did with assistance of some of the friends in my local car group here.
Right.
And it was an awesome learning experience. And they helped out by donating some parts to me and stuff, as the car guys do, because they felt bad for me. But
well, we got to have community.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's a lot from learning from this. And, there's other things that other people may have hobbies in where they can kind of relate to this. But yeah, it just teaches you patience, perseverance, getting back up. Patience is, again, the number one thing I've learned with this whole process.
Yeah. Okay. So Marshall, you mentioned your faith. I want to hear about that. And we set it up this way. We talked about this before we got online here, and I've kind of alluded to it, but I just love seeing the energy. I love seeing the fact that you enjoy what you're doing so much. But I also know you're a man of faith. I also know that you are very involved. You're active in your local church. I also know that you've got a degree from a Bible college. And sometimes people have the idea, and philosophers, theologians kind of refer to it this way, that there's a sacred life and a secular life. And the sacred is like church type stuff. And secular as everything else, my job, whatever. But the truth is, we're created in the image of God, and God wires everything together, and we worship God through what we do. All that to say is, if Jesus is Lord of our life, that means everything we do, even with our jobs. So I could worship God by flipping a hamburger or building an engine or building a missile or preaching a sermon or whatever. But I know that you're more than just a car guy. Can you, what is your faith story?
Yeah. So, I didn't really go to church or have a family that really did all that when I was a kid. And my now wife, when we were dating, she said, "You're going to come to church with me if you want to stay with me." I'm like, "Well, I really like this girl, so I guess I should just, go through the motions."
Right.
And so I started going, and I was the last one in and the first one out.
Right.
I was like, "Hey, it's over. Let's go. We did our due diligence. We did our job, and we're here, and we participated. Let's go home." And just over time, you could feel the barriers coming down, and it wasn't
Okay.
more of just I'm here to warm the seat. It's more of, oh, that's interesting. That actually applies to my life. Like, oh, I've been there before. And you start listening a little bit more, and you do some practical application, and it started to break down those walls to where I was like, okay, you know what? There's something to this. I kind of relate it to, we're using the engine as the example, is there's a bunch of parts laying around, but there's a purpose for those parts, and
That's good.
they all come together, and they don't come together without a creator.
That's
right?
good.
You can have
yeah.
pistons, you can have a block, and they're all on a table, but until a creator puts those pieces together,
And a designer.
right? And a designer, they're
That's
just
good.
pieces. And coming from my car background, that was how I put it together. And so I'm like, okay, there's something bigger here. And so I started doing my own reading, and I started opening a Bible and reading, starting in Matthew and going through that way. So I finally said, okay, I'm ready to make the choice to make Jesus the Lord of my life. Got baptized and been doing that, participating as much as possible ever since. So I blame my wife now because she's done this to me. But you
She
look
loves
at
you.
oh, definitely more than I deserve. But you look at the woman at the well. Jesus approached a woman first, and she was the first one to go spread the good news. I met this man. Come and see. And that's exactly what my wife did. Is I know this man. Come and see. And it's amazing how you can see a parallel of the woman at the well being the first one to bring people to Christ, and my wife was the one that brought me. So over time, so yeah, it's just a great correlation, and that's just kind of how I got into things, and I carry it into work here. It's ultimately we're called to be the salt and light, and how do we be different? And being a country club, of course, customer service is very important, but it's also the people that are not members here. People that are just coming in to see the cars. It's how you treat people, how you hold yourself.
How you treat your staff, I'm
Oh,
thinking.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And before we hopped online here, I had mentioned that the car community, from at least my observation, is some of the lowest, Christ believers or Christ followers
Okay.
population. And I blame a lot of that is because on the weekends we're working on our cars. So Sunday we're not going to church on Sunday. We're in the garage turning a wrench. And again, this is just me speculating. I don't want to say this is fact, but just through my observations. And so here recently, it's actually been going really well. I have a young man. His name is Jeff, and he started a car meet called Cars and Bibles.
Okay.
And he reached out to me about 2 months ago, and a couple weeks ago we had a car meet here, and we had about 100 people.
Wow.
And about 100 cars, which is a great turnout. And he's only got a couple hundred followers on Instagram. So if you guys do the social media, I highly encourage you to go follow him, even if you're not local to this area.
And so what is his tag or whatever on Instagram?
Yeah, it's Cars and Bibles.
Cars and Bibles. Cars and Bibles.
Yes, that's what it's called. So make sure you guys go check that out. He's just getting his page starting, so he's still low, so all the followers count. But he, it's really interesting because he showed up. He had a couple vendors, to help cover some of the cost of the event, which I didn't charge him for the event just because of what it is. And it was really nice because about after an hour, when everybody showed up, people started giving testimonies in the middle of the parking lot of a car meet. That is the most out there, crazy thing. And he said, "Hey, this is how I came to Christ." And then his, I think it was his girlfriend or his buddy went next, and they were just kind of telling their story. And, the easiest way that you can communicate with people about Christ and open those doors and have those conversations is just how you got there and how you came to know him. Because a lot of people have a lot more of a similar story than you think. So after the event, good turnout, good crowd, well behaved. I said, "Hey, I like what you do. Coming from a Bible college and being a Christ follower myself, I said, I think this is something that you need to do here every month." And so we're getting together later next week and going to try and find a solid date on the calendar where it can be a reoccurring event here. that way you can continue to do that, and reach people. And the following that we have here as a business, I've got to do that balance. But yeah, so that's kind of how we're doing it here, and how you're treating people as well. It goes a very, very long way.
Mhm. So, in the day to day rhythm of doing your vocation, working with people, working with paper, email, bills, packing slips, cars, oil, whatever. What are some illustrations or stories, or maybe lessons that you can give our audience about how your faith is real? It's not just a Sunday morning deal, but just in the regular rhythm of life in your world here. What are some ways that Christianity makes a difference?
Yeah, so being in the customer service industry that this is, and being people focused, you come across some people that are a little bit difficult sometimes,
Okay.
and they mean well, but they're trying to get something across that's their own, what they're trying to do. And when I get a little worked up about it too, I have to remember everybody's made in God's image. We're all equal. We all have value.
Right.
And I don't know what this person's gone through today.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't know. And so the best thing I can do is just treat them with kindness, because sometimes the people that need hospitality or kindness the most are the ones that are the rudest, excuse me, the rudest, or just having a bad time. And sometimes they just really need someone to see them and value them.
Mhm.
And there's, especially being in a leadership position here, that comes to my staff too, my team. It's, yes, we're just pushing paper sometimes,
Yeah.
but you've got to motivate them and remind them that, hey, like, we still have a purpose here. This is what we're doing. I mean, we get to be around probably $10, $12 million worth of cars right now
Oh yeah.
here in the entire building. We have people lined up at the door wanting to work here all the
Wow.
time.
Wow.
And it's like, even the worst day here is better than the best day somewhere else.
Hmm.
And you've got to really remember that. So it's encouragement, but knowing that we have that value, we have that purpose, really helps carry things through day to day.
Mhm. So, Marshall, we're talking to young men. What are some things guys just need to know? Because not everyone's got your mind, your
Sure.
your temperament, your ability. But what are some basic things that just some basic things every guy ought to know about cars?
Yeah, there's just a few basics. We have a class that we teach here. We try to do it every quarter,
Okay.
for like roadside hazards and stuff like that. So I think, some of the things that we really push on, and we have an acronym for it called TACO,
Okay.
TACO, like Taco Tuesday. T is for tires. You want to measure your tread,
Yeah.
your tread of your tires. A is your air pressure in your tires. C is your coolant, and O is your oil. So you want to make sure how to check all those, and whether you do it once a week, every Tuesday for Taco Tuesday,
Mhm, mhm.
that's a good way to remember that. Or if you do it once a month, once a quarter. But of course, the more you check that, the more you know the health and condition of your vehicle. A lot of owners' manuals will have what the tire pressure should be, tread depth, things like that, in the book. Same thing with oil, as well, and coolant levels will tell
Mhm.
you how to read that. Just some very basics. And if you know those things, that's a great start, because it helps you stay on top of maintenance, which
Mhm.
saves, it's preventative maintenance. It's just like health for your body.
There you are. Yeah.
Yeah. So as long as you're eating your veggies, having the food pyramid, if they even do that nowadays, I haven't seen that in a long time. Yeah. As long as you have your pyramid of food, you should be pretty healthy. And it's the same thing for your car. You want to make sure that you have the right kind of fluids, it's the right kind of color, how to check it. That way you do preventative maintenance. Another good skill I would highly recommend is how to change your oil.
Yeah. I remember my dad didn't teach me much growing up, my adopted dad, but he taught me how to change the oil. And I remember this was back in the 80s, late 80s. And, maybe there were EPA rules about it at the time. My dad just didn't care. But I remember, had the pan underneath it, and you remove the bolt, and, the oil comes in, and I just took it out to the dumpster in the alley and dumped it. And I know you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, I know you can't do that, but it would seem that a guy can save money if he does it himself. But, quick synopsis.
Yeah, so oil change is a super good skill to have. There's a lot of YouTube videos on it too. So if you want
Okay.
something specific to your car, there's probably a YouTube video out there for that. But I also recommend doing it yourself, just because you know what's going in your car.
Okay.
If you go to these quick lube places, yes, they're convenient. Yes, they're quick. They're sometimes a little bit cheaper, maybe around the same price as if you did it yourself, and they're faster, but they may not be putting the best kind of oil in your car.
Okay.
So if you have a high mileage car with 75, 80 or more thousand miles on it, you're going to want to put a high mileage oil in it, which those kind of places may upcharge you for it. But if you go to your local Advanced Auto Parts, O'Reilly's or whatever, they'll have it on the shelf. A lot of times the auto parts store will have an oil filter and oil special going on. It's like
Okay.
5 quarts in a filter for $40.
Okay.
You know, when you
And
invest,
that's all you pay because you don't have to pay for the service.
right,
So I've got $40 opposed to 75.
right. And then you also know what's going in the car. You also know the date that you did it. So of course, I highly recommend you writing the date and mileage on the bottom of the
So
oil
how
filter.
often do guys need to have their oil changed?
Depends on the car, but I recommend 3,000 to 5,000 miles.
Okay.
3,000 to 5,000 for most cars are pretty safe. A lot of these modern cars, they'll tell you they can go up to 10,000 miles on an oil change.
But don't do
I
that.
would not recommend that because oil is the lubrication for your entire engine.
Mhm.
If over time with heat and friction, the oil will break down. It'll lose that viscosity is what they call it, the lube of it,
Mhm.
the slickness. And over time, you'll lose that and it breaks down, and that's what causes wear on your engine. So you definitely want to stay on top of your oil changes, make sure you're using good brands for your car, and make sure it's appropriate for your car. Make sure it's the right weight, the thickness of the oil. Make sure you have a good filter, things like that.
So what is the difference between oil and synthetic oil? Because I see that.
Yeah, so the biggest difference between just raw oil is really what it is. It's just straight oil that's been filtered for a certain weight of your vehicle. So you'll see like 10W30.
Right.
It's 10 weight 30 or 2050, right? That's a really thick oil. But most modern cars use like 020 or 010, which is basically like water. That's how thin the oil is. But synthetic is exactly what it is. It's synthetic. It's blended.
good
It's
or bad?
man-made. Well, it depends on the car, what you're trying to do. But synthetic is good for a lot of modern cars. So your daily driver, synthetic's great.
Okay.
But if you have something that's a 60s, 70s, 80s car, I probably would not use a synthetic because it's thinner.
Okay.
And in the older cars, there's more tolerance for parts. It's not as tightly machined as modern cars are. There's a little bit more of a gap to fill, if you will, and that oil helps fill those gaps.
Okay. So this is kind of a fun question, although a lot of people are going to be mad because they're going to say, no, Steve, it's a serious question.
Oh, man, here we go.
But what about electric cars? Because I'm not a fan.
Not a fan. Okay.
And I may have offended you. I don't think I did.
I don't get offended. I will tell you, I'm not one of those that's going to get like offended. Oh, gosh, how dare you? No, that's not me. I'm a car guy. It takes a lot. You can even offend the cars I like. And I'm like, so what?
So what?
But EVs, as a general overall, I'll say I like them.
Okay.
I like them in the fact that it's instant torque. I like them for the performance part of it.
Like the vehicle you talked about.
Yeah, that Acura. Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as you hit the pedal, you get 100% power. And that throw you in the back of the seat. Your seatbelt tightens like that. The pumping of the adrenaline,
Okay.
the
Okay.
instant.
Okay.
I love that. As far as like daily driver status, if you're only working 15, 20 minutes from work, I could totally see an EV being practical for you.
Okay.
You just charge it at home. As if you have a driveway or a garage, just to do that with a 220 or outlet to properly charge it. I think they have a place in the car culture, in the car community. But as far as like fully everybody has to commit to them, I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I think you still should have a freedom of choice of what you want to drive, and whatever it takes to get you there. Because not everybody can afford, a $60,000
Right.
EV.
Right.
Some people are just, day to day, hand to mouth, and you've got a $3,000 Jeep that you can drive. That's
Right,
what you
right.
can drive. And, how is someone going to tell me what I can and can't drive? And so I think we're starting to see a lot of the backpedaling going on from the big manufacturers about the EV, because some of these brands had fully committed, yes, are in the next 5 years, we're 100 electric, nothing else, only EV.
That just doesn't seem possible that you can do that.
Oh, and you're alienating a big part of your consumer, I believe, by doing that. And so a lot of people are backpedaling from that. Like Acura was going to be a full, I think it was Acura, don't quote me on that. That was going to be a full electric brand, and they've nixed that. Dodge, they did that with the Challenger. They had the Challenger came out, was all electric, and they saw like a 70% tank in sales because nobody wants an electric charger, right? They had just a generation before, they had the Dodge Demon, which has 1,025 horsepower from the factory. And then your next is going to be an EV. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
You're alienating a lot of your loyal customers. A lot of those brands are backpedaling now. Do I think they have a place? Absolutely.
Okay.
Do I have one? No, because I like my vroom vroom noises of the engine. But the other thing about EVs is I can't work on them.
Yeah.
Even on modern cars, I don't really touch a lot of modern cars because there's so many sensors and,
Yeah.
and warnings and diodes and all sorts of a mess of
Yeah.
electrical. But like, you know, something from the 60s or 70s, like the Fiats I work on with like 6 wires, I can make the car run.
Right.
You know, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
You got to have a sensor that triggers another sensor that triggers another sensor. So,
Yeah.
you know, I try and stay away from anything newer than like 1985.
Okay.
But
And maybe that has to do with your ability too. I mean, if you're a guy and God wired you up in such a way that you just cannot fix anything,
Yeah.
that's okay.
yeah,
Then maybe you might want to go in that direction. But if you're a guy who likes to fix things, and again, but I believe that there are some basic things that everybody ought to know. I think for me, for electric cars, I've joked if someone gave me an electric car, I would immediately sell it.
yeah, and get the money.
And get the money. And
Yeah.
I bought an electric lawnmower last year. My oldest son joked to me about that. Dad, I can't believe you did that. And I said, well, John, an electric lawnmower, it's practical. I'm only cutting the grass. But if I want to do a road trip, I've got to say, okay, where in the world can I charge this thing?
Yeah.
And,
Well, luckily the technology for charging has come a long way in the past
Okay.
5 years too.
Okay.
Tesla, of course, being the pioneer in a lot of this. If you do in your car, you put where you're going to go. Let's say you're going to go from here to, I don't know, Nacogdoches, for example. That's 3.5
Los
hours.
Angeles.
Okay, perfect.
New
Let's say
York.
that. Let's say you're going to go
Montreal.
from Texas to LA,
Right.
and you want to take your Tesla. You put that in the app and on the screen in the Tesla. It'll tell you charge here. It'll tell you all the chargers along the way. Of
So
where to
how
go.
long does it take to charge?
It just depends. Depends on what you're at. Most fast chargers will only charge your car up to 80%
Okay.
capacity just to protect the batteries because you're putting a ton of voltage and it creates a lot of heat, which degrades the condition of the batteries.
Okay.
They're just like rechargeable batteries at your house, you know, for your digital camera or
Yeah,
whatever. You know, if you rapid charge them too much over time, they get weaker and weaker and
Yeah.
weaker. That's exactly it. So most fast chargers will only go up to 80%. You can override it to charge your car to 100%, but of course they don't recommend that.
Okay.
But if you're doing a big trip like that, but still, even a fast charge will still take you 15, 20 minutes probably.
Yeah.
I know that when Chevrolet was coming out with a new electric Silverado, and then GMC with the Hummer, they said something like 12 minutes.
Okay.
You can go from 10% to 80%. I think the Ford Lightning was the same way, their electric truck.
Okay.
Like 12 minutes, you can go from very low to
Okay.
80%.
Okay.
So,
I think two big things for me. One, and you mentioned one. One of those is just the price. That there's just no way that
Yeah.
most people can afford it. But I think also the culture that we live in, where it's a good and evil type thing
Right.
for some people. And men in the audience, I just don't think we need to go to that direction.
No.
If somebody wants electric, that's fine. But to say you must do this or whatever, I just think that takes us down a wrong road. Now, okay, so we're talking about electric and combustion, whatever, but in cars general, what are some cars, Marshall, that you just want to stay away from? I mean, I keep hearing that I need to stay away from Fords, and I've had a lot of problems with Fords, and I understand that. A funny thing is, so we lived in Russia for 2 years. And, and this, I mean, we could digress talking about socialism.
Oh, geez.
Which we're not going to do that.
Yes.
Although Russia, which was the premier socialist country, they didn't make anything.
Right.
I mean, they made there's a car called the Lada and 2 or 3 other cars. But the point is, I remember talking to a guy who drove us around a lot. He said in Russia, they didn't want an American car. They didn't want a Japanese car. They wanted a German car because their roads were so bad.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
the
yeah.
German cars were strong and they held up on bad roads. So number one, what are some cars that it's just like, okay, guys, just don't go there?
That's tough. Because as I've been in the car community for, coming up on a decade here, it's like everybody's got their issues.
Okay.
Right? Don't we all? We've all got our problems.
Okay.
I can't really say no to Ford because I have one at home. My wife drives a Ford. I have a Chevy that I daily drive. So we're on both sides of the spectrum there. And I work on Fiat, so I already know all about bad cars.
Right.
But, one that immediately comes to mind is McLaren, actually.
McLaren, I've heard it. I thought
Yeah.
it was a nice car.
So McLarens are considered exotics, supercars. But mechanically, if you are not driving them at least 2-3 times a week and you let them sit, they start
Okay.
running into problems. They have a module for their battery. That's how ridiculous it is. But there's a module on the battery that triggers issues. So if you run less than 12 volts on the car battery,
Okay.
everything starts throwing codes and it won't start and all sorts of stuff. So it causes a lot of problems. But of course, McLaren is still very popular. But I personally probably wouldn't own one. Would I drive one? Absolutely.
Okay.
but I wouldn't own one, especially for the cost. So we actually have that's what that teal one is down there, is a 765 LT McLaren. That's about a $700,000 car.
Wow.
Yeah, and if I'm spending 700 grand on a car, I don't want to have to worry if I'm going to have some sort of mechanical issues. So McLaren is one that I would stay away from. At least that's what comes off the top of my head. Ferrari can be a little finicky as well.
Really?
They're kind of particular on certain things. But I'm sitting here mentioning exotic cars, which like 99.5 of us can't have or can't afford or don't want to afford. One that I probably would never own is a BMW.
Really?
Yeah, just because goes back to the German engineering, right? The Russians wanted the Volkswagens because they were so sturdy on the road. BMWs are designed with one specific purpose and one specific thing. They're German engineered. If you do it my way, you'll be just fine. But if you are not super timely on the maintenance schedule, if you make any alterations for customization, you start running into problems. So if like you want to put a sound system in there, you may run into an issue. Especially the older ones, so like the 2000s up to like the 2012s, around there, you may run into issues. There's a lot of hoses and rubber parts that they use in their engines for vacuum controlled stuff.
Wow.
And different kinds of sensors, and rubber over time with heat breaks down and cracks. Well, then you have vacuum leaks. You're running rough. You're not running properly, and good luck finding a cracked hose when it's covered in hoses.
Right. You got to pull everything out.
Exactly. Now, the one good thing about BMW is, there's a lot of power in those engines, and they tune them down from the factory.
Okay.
So if you bought a BMW, you could actually go to a performance shop. There's a few here in town, and you say, hey, I want you to unlock the extra horsepower of my engine, and they can. They'll just log into the computer. They'll tell the computer to remove certain barriers, and you just gain an extra 50 to 75 horsepower just by a tune.
Wow.
And that's why BMW is really popular with kind of the early 20s, early 30s crowd, is because you can just tune in instantly anywhere from 50 to 100 horsepower with a tune and not having to change anything with the engine.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
And I hear mechanics talk about just being frustrated because it's like you have to have a computer degree.
Yeah.
Almost with some of these.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially on these cars now, everything is, you cannot do anything unless you have like an OBD2 reader, the little scanner. And that's really where you start, because there's so many sensors, so many parts that you have to plug in to let the computer tell you where it's getting a fault code from. It's not like a 60s or 70s car where you need to know each system of the car. And hey, I'm starting to get blue smoke out of my exhaust. That means it's an oiling issue. Well, I need to look at my oil system. Well, where could oil be leaking from? And you go that way. But in a modern car, it could be anything. You could have just one little O-ring is bad, and you got to pull half the engine apart to get to an O-ring.
Yeah.
So it can be frustrating.
Okay, so the other end of the pendulum, I hear a lot of people say Honda. You want to get a Honda. So if you need a vehicle, you want to get a good vehicle. What's your take?
Yeah, so you cannot go wrong with a Honda, or especially a Toyota.
Okay. Well, okay. Out of those two, if you had to pick one, Honda or Toyota, what would you go with?
I would go with a Toyota.
Okay.
Toyota's actually designed, when they build a car, they actually plan for poor maintenance on the vehicle.
Okay.
So when they design stuff, the engine, they accommodate for, well, we're just going to expect that your average user of this car only changes oil every 7,500 miles instead of every 5,000 miles, like they should. Or we're going to assume that this person rides on really bad roads more often than not. And they engineer that into building the cars.
Wow.
So that's why you'll see some of the oldest cars you still see ticking down the road are Toyotas and Hondas, because they accommodate and they plan for those things. And they kind of over-engineer some of the stuff to accommodate for excess wear, to accommodate for the misuse of the vehicle. They plan on it. And so they do a lot of testing in their own facilities. That's why you don't really see a lot of recalls for Toyota and Honda. Of course, Toyota just within the last year had that big recall on the Tundras because of the engine issue. But the good thing is Toyota jumped right on it, and they recalled them all. And all the cars that were sold with those engines, they all got brand new engines.
Okay.
So, but Toyota does a very good job with that. If I was to recommend any car to somebody, it would be somewhere in the Toyota world or Honda world.
Okay.
Because you can easily get 200,000-300,000 miles out of a Toyota,
understand.
Especially with just regularly good scheduled maintenance, oil changes, coolant, pads, your brake pads, your rotors. As long as you're keeping up with the car will go for a very long time. My 2018 Equinox, it's a Chevy, but I just crossed 103,000 miles on it, and I don't have a single leak out of that car because I do the scheduled maintenance. I check my rubber hoses. I check the belts. I check tensioners. I check those things just to avoid longer problems. Again, preventative maintenance goes a long way.
So with tires, you mentioned tires a couple of times. How often should a guy get his tires rotated? Either A, he gets a buddy and he jacks it up and he does it himself, or B, he goes to Discount Tire or whatever. Because I know that will increase the life of the tires.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So what the good rule of thumb is, every time you do an oil change, rotate your tires.
Really? That often?
Yeah, just because your rear tires, if you have a rear wheel drive car, it's going to take a lot more of the brunt because you're accelerating off of those tires.
Okay.
And the fronts are just going along for the ride, right? And if you have a front wheel drive car like a Honda or Toyota Corolla, something along those lines that are front wheel drive, then those are taking the brunt of the force of getting you going. And the back tires are trucking along. The other thing is, you don't know about alignment. If your wheels are aligned correctly, then you'll evenly wear them if you're doing a proper rotation of the tires. So yeah, just whenever you do an oil change, it's a good rule of thumb. You do just kind of like a crisscross pattern where your front ones, so like your front drivers will go to your rear passenger, your front passenger goes to your rear driver.
Right.
And then your next time you cross and go the other way. So that way everybody's getting an equal corner use and they wear a little bit more evenly.
Now, some places like America's Tires or Discount Tires, that if you buy the tires there, they'll give you like free rotation periodically.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just part of the purchase of the tire. It also helps discount. I mean, it's kind of like good on their side because for opportunity to sell you tires in the future.
Well, they get the customer relationship.
Right. They get the relationship. They also get somebody in their door that normally wouldn't probably be there to purchase tires, especially if the tires are good. But it also helps with warranties. So if you buy the warranty on your tires, they may have like a 50,000, 70,000 mile warranty. When you go in for those rotations, they document those on your account. It helps with the warranty. So let's say you have a 50,000 mile warranty on tires, and by the time you hit 35,000, they're bald or below the safe tread depth.
Right.
You go in and say, hey, I want to warranty my tires. Well, if you've been rotating them consistently and it shows up on your profile, they'll get you more money for the early wear of your tires. Now, if you're not going in and they're not documenting it, they won't give you as much because they'll say, well, you're not rotating your tires enough. Even though you're doing it at home, that's not proof for them. You could, somebody on the street could say, oh yeah, I've been rotating my tires, and they haven't.
Right.
So going in, doing those rotations, every oil change is very advisable, because then you end up getting credit, especially if you've got that warranty.
Right.
You get some money back because the tire didn't live the lifespan that they guaranteed it to do it.
Right. Okay, so with money back and money in general and maintenance, so we've got a guy. Yeah, I can change my wiper blades, and definitely I can do the air filter, maybe the oil, but I just, God didn't make me a mechanic, so they've got to go find somebody, and we know this. There are bad mechanics out there. There are good mechanics. There's shops out there that maybe they're good, but they just cost way too much. What does a guy want to look for to find somebody who's going to give him a good job, and they're going to charge him a reasonable rate, not something that's astronomical? What's something that, a few things that guys need to look for in finding a mechanic?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's pretty tough.
Okay.
If you're not really a big car guy, you don't have a lot of questions to kind of quiz a technician to see if they know the answers. For something simple,
you don't want to be a poser pretending like you know what you
because nobody likes that, right? Nobody wants an attitude. If you ask them a basic question, they should be able to have an answer for you readily. One thing you really want to look for is what's called an ASE. A is in Adam, S is in Sam, E is in Echo certification. An ASE certification. That's a standardized certification that mechanics can get. There's different levels, 1, 2, and 3, I believe, and they can get classified. But that, by passing that test and saying they are ASE certified, means that they have at least met the minimum requirement to be a mechanic. And that means they've gone through courses, they've gone through different, it's kind of like a CPA certification for accountants, but for mechanics.
Right.
It's like the bar for attorneys. An ASE certification is something you definitely want to look for. So if you're going to big chain mechanic shops, Firestone, Pet Boys, places like that, they'll say they have ASE certified technician, but you want to make sure that how many are ASE certified, because they may have a lead tech who's ASE certified, but he's only there 4 days a week.
Right.
And so you want to make sure that the people that are working on your car are ASE certified, to make sure that not just the guy they pulled off the street is working on your car. That's really a good way to start looking at it and to determine who is quality to work on your car. What I've also found is kind of the older guys, guys that have been
Okay.
mechanics for a while, been around the block. They've been doing it for 25, 30 years. They've been through the game.
I
They
can see that.
know,
Yeah.
and they're not going to charge you, an arm and a leg to get something done. There's been plenty of times where, perfect example is we have a Lamborghini V12 engine that we're rebuilding here
Okay.
for a member, and I took it to a machine shop. And I said, hey, I need to make sure that the surface is flat and not warped. He said, yeah, no problem. We'll call you in a couple days. So 3 days later, I got a call, and they said, yeah, it's perfectly flat, no problems. Come get it. I said, great. So I walk up and said, okay, what do I owe you? Oh, don't worry about it. When it's something small where it takes them 10 minutes to check something,
Right.
with their actual correct tools, and they say, oh, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And that shop's been open for 65 years, and the guys that have been running it are still there.
Right.
So that's kind of something that I can tell is a good place to take my car. But being a car guy myself, a lot of work I do myself.
Right.
But if you are forced to be in a position where it's too big of a job for you, or you're way over your head, ASE certification is a great place to start. And I really kind of take reviews with a grain of salt,
Okay.
because we all know that people that leave reviews are typically, more on the angry side, not on the positive side. We got a Beetle rolling in here.
No, my mother had something like that. That looks like a good one.
Yeah, that's a nice one. We have a big VW event
Okay.
tomorrow, so people are starting to show up. Anyway, my car ADD there. Ooh, look at the shiny car. On the way back in this morning, I caught a glimpse of a McLaren and some other stuff. So my eyes are always like on a swivel looking for some cool stuff. So.
Well, that's who you are. That's
Yeah,
what
that
God
is-
made
That
you.
is my guilty. I'm definitely guilty. So
Well, speaking about who you are, okay, Marshall. If we've got some guys out there, maybe they live in Houston and they want to come by,
Yeah.
or and I know you've got a YouTube channel as well.
Yep.
So tell the audience how people can find you or get information about you, either here at the shop or your YouTube channel, or just how people can find you.
yeah. So if you're interested in finding more about the Shop Club, here we are, where we're doing this podcast recording right now. Is you can go to theshopclubs.com, plural, theshopclubs.com. It'll bring up all 3 locations, and you can click on the location you're interested in. It'll give you some information, the phone number, things like that. The restaurants, you can book a reservation for the restaurant through there, and get some more information about the Shop Club and what it looks like to be a member here. Membership's a lot more affordable than you think.
Okay.
Membership here to have full access to the entire building is only $200 a month. You have access to the lifts and the tools and the wash space and the chemicals and the cigar room and conference rooms. It's all included. We have a golf simulator here. We have a race simulator, so all sorts of cool stuff. We do member activities. In November, we're doing a rally to Fredericksburg for wine country.
Okay.
Everybody's going to hop in their cars and take a road trip together and stay in some private cottages in the hill country of Texas, which is going to be a great time. So we do a lot of cool stuff, cigar night, poker night.
Okay, so you mentioned cigar rooms. So my question is, the most famous cigar smoker in my mind is Winston
Oh,
Churchill.
of course, the iconic.
Do you have a picture of Winston
Oh.
Churchill in your cigar room?
We've got to. You've got to have them in there. The big fat Churchill cigar is so iconic that you've got to be in there, and especially the man that he was and what he did for the world. So yeah, absolutely, we've got pictures of him. But
What's your YouTube? You got a YouTube channel?
I do. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel. It's called GarageTimeTV.
Garage Time TV.
Yeah,
And
that's where
we'll put all this in the show notes as
yeah,
well.
all down there, links to that. But that's where I build my cars. So the VW bus I built on there, the X19, the 124s. Currently, I'm working on rebuilding a Fiat 850. It's a 72. Did full engine build. I painted the car myself.
Wow.
Did some light body work, all sorts of cool stuff. So that's what I'm working on now on the channel as well. And then off and on, I'll post a video here and there. I'm doing a 1952 GMC pickup truck for my wife.
Okay.
And I'm doing an LS swap into it. So it's a Chevy V8 engine. I'm swapping into it, going from like 80 horsepower it had with a straight 6 back in the 50s to about 300 horsepower. But it's an automatic, so she'll really enjoy driving it. So
horsepower that actually comes, and I don't know the specifics, but my assumption is that comes from, a couple hundred years ago. How much power can 2 horses pull?
yeah, so I don't know the exact math of how this all came about or how we measure horsepower, but I think I saw somewhere that like 1 horse actually has like 2.5 horsepower,
Okay.
which is pretty funny. But I know there's some calculation. It's like how much energy it uses versus how much it puts out in a certain frame. It's science. I am not a science guy. Those of you that are not car guys, I can relate in the science realm. I'm not a science guy.
I thank God for them, and I thank
Yeah.
God for guys like you
Amen.
too.
Yeah. Oof. I'm not a science guy, but I know there's a way behind it. So, Yeah, but horsepower is one of those things that just the more the merrier. You can't have too much. I think it was Shelby that said that. You don't have enough horsepower, you just don't have enough traction.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
So,
Yeah. Marshall, this has been fun. Let me ask you this question. I ask a lot of guys. If you had a young man standing in front of you right now, late teens, mid 20s, young man, and you had one opportunity to give him just one piece of advice, what would it be?
oh man, 20s to kind of start getting into life, in that late college, kind of what do you want to do with yourself? It's really if you put, looking back, even reflecting a little bit on my own life, is if you put God first, everything else will follow.
Okay.
And, I didn't do that early on. Just, I was in that rejection stage. I was, in my wandering stage of the desert, if you want to call it that. And I learned a lot during that point, but it's ultimately when I gave my life to Christ is when I started to see things come together.
Okay.
And I could see visible changes in my life, the people that were in my life that were steering me in the right direction. And it's the value is who you surround yourself with. And, you'll see a lot of, especially in the car world, car clubs and stuff like that. If you're in the wrong car club, you're going to get pulled over a lot. You're going to get targeted by police. You're misbehaving, things like that. You're influenced by the people you surround yourself with. So if you are surrounding yourself with like-minded people, Christian-based people, we're all going to lead each other in the right direction. And, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, that's in the Proverbs.
Exactly. We're going to make each other better. And being in this position that I'm in here now and being in the car world, I've learned a lot from other men that are older than me, even younger than me, that I was like, oh, I built that engine for the first time. Older guys have done it before, taught me how to do it. And getting those experiences from people that are like-minded, on the right track in life, who are not getting in trouble, not out there partying, who value, what time we have here. We never know when we're going to leave.
Yeah.
Right? And all these cars, as wonderful as they are, one of these guys here has 33 cars in the collection. They're not going with you.
Not going with you.
Right. So you got to do what you can with the time you're given and, use it wisely and surround yourself by the right people.
Yeah.
Matthias, even though you and I are self-proclaimed non-car guys, we both have car stories. And it was fun to start the conversation with Marshall, just talking about my first car and, the Pontiac Le Mans, 79 Le Mans. I mean, it was mine. It was beat down, but it was mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a fun way to start the discussion and to hear Marshall's story, to hear just all the information he had, whether it was, fast cars, big cars, EV cars. And like you, I didn't understand the significance of the torque and how that happens with the electric and all that. But listening to the conversation, what were some things that you thought, I never knew that, or, okay, hey, that's interesting, or, okay, I get it. I could apply that to my life today.
Yeah, I mean, so talking about your first vehicles, man, it took me back it takes me back to thinking about my first car. I had a 98 Ford F-150, and I wanted a truck, and part of me was excited, part of me was disappointed. It was not the truck I wanted, but I wish I could go back and slap myself because I love that truck looking back, and I loved it then too. But yeah, my parents got a great deal. They bought it from a family friend, and the only thing, it was a maroon truck, Ford F-150 with a 1.5 half cab. Is that what you call it? Half cab? Yeah.
I don't know. Big.
So it had the full front seats, and then it had like a half door that you open from the same side you open the front door too.
Okay. Yeah.
And
they didn't have those when I was a kid.
Yeah, they didn't. Man, looking back, I love the truck. The only thing that killed me was the inside. So the inside interior matched the outside color. So all the seats were like maroon. The dashboard was maroon. But yeah, so I mean, I looked back, I was like, man, I wish I had that truck to give my son when he turned 16, if they're still legal to even drive them, which is something we could touch on. They all talked about. But yeah, man, it just took me back to thinking about my first vehicle, and man, that's the first vehicle I got in a wreck in. I got a lot of memories. So, and like I think Marshall said, this is kind of a rite of passage. That's your first real taste of freedom, is when you're driving yourself places. Yeah. So it just kind of, first and foremost, kind of just took me back to being nostalgic about my first car, kind of all the freedom I kind of experienced with that. And
there's a good story in all of those.
Yeah, exactly.
And guys need to have those stories.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, that was the big thing that kind of, I really enjoyed about the interview, opening up at least, got me thinking back to mine, which I think a lot of people can relate. Everybody, has their first vehicle story, and they have so many stories from their first vehicle. But kind of moving into more so the car stuff. He talked about the 4 things that you kind of need to know how to do with your car. Yeah,
is that the taco? The taco?
Yeah. Well, I think so there's the taco, and then there's also the things that any man should know what to do with the car. And I'm thinking, listen, they're like, okay, the only one I don't think I could figure it out, because he said you could figure it out on YouTube, which I figured out most of the things I don't know on YouTube. It was changing my oil. That's one thing I've never changed. But I do remember with one of my cars, I took on the task of changing the brake pads myself for the very first time when I was in college.
I did that once.
Yeah, I will always pay somebody to do that for me. that took 4 or 5 hours for me to do. And I didn't have like a lift or anything. I used the car jack in there to change tires with, and had to move it all around to change each one individually. Man, but yeah, it's kind of goes back to that thing of having a vehicle, especially if you don't come from a background of a lot of money or anything, you kind of learn how to do a lot of these things yourself. And that kind of ties into that concept of being a man, of overcoming things, of learning things, kind of pushing through, kind of like we talked about in the Boy Scouts episode from last week, that one kid that was like, I'm going to call my mom. And I think it was the Scoutmaster was like, where are you going to call her from?
Yeah. That was me and one of my buddies, Randy. We were assistant senior patrol leaders, and the kid just threw down his pack, and Randy looked at him and said, okay, where are you going to call her at? And, this is pre-cell phones, and we're in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the kid was like, I did this. I did it, and you're right. I agree with you. And I thought it was interesting that Marshall said that he took the piece that was beat up, and he kind of put it there as a trophy. I think we ought to have a lot of trophies in our lives, but it also kind of makes me want to go back to one of the things that we said in our opening episode, that part of being a man is you want to have a general knowledge of a lot of different things. Yeah. And I hope we can do that throughout the man identity. It doesn't mean that we're going to be an expert at everything. We're not going to be an expert at everything, but being a mature man, a well-rounded man, we want to have some general knowledge of just a lot of things. And even if we're not car guys, just to have a general knowledge as to what's going on will just make us better rounded men, and also being able to engage in conversation with other men.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually complaining to my wife, I think maybe like a month ago or something. I was like, I was just really down in the dumps, and I'm like, man, what use am I? I'm like, I'm okay and decent at a lot of things, but I'm not an expert in anything, but then you said that on the first episode, and I was like, maybe that's okay. Maybe that's a good thing, that, it's okay for me to be decent at a lot of things instead of an expert in one. So, well,
and I want to encourage you too, Matthias, because as we age, we're able to narrow in more and more. As we age, we're able to have a respect for people who have gifts we don't, and to honor it. But we're able to hone and fine tune our craft. So even though we may be in our late 20s or early 30s, and we're thinking, the thoughts that you're working through right now, I just want to encourage you that you just push in there. You just keep going, because it takes years. To really fine tune our craft. Number one, we want to know that we do have value. We're created in the image of God, and he's given us all gifts and abilities, but the fine tuning and the honing and the building of the craft is something that it comes with years. So I just want to encourage you, and encourage all the other young men listening, to just keep pushing on, because the day will come when a lot of that will be made clear.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I'm sure the viewers could benefit from that. And I do appreciate that encourage,ment because that is something I want to know. I provide value, not only to society, but to my creator, So I'd like to be good at something and hone in a craft. I think that's where I've been in my life, is finding a craft to hone in on.
Well, you're good at this podcast thing, because you've got a lot more talent and skill in this than I do, and I know that the man identity is going to go someplace, and it's going to be because of your
thank you. I appreciate
ability. That. Although we do want our podcast listeners to like and subscribe and download.
Yes, that'll help us go somewhere.
That'll help us go somewhere. So practically, he talked about general maintenances. And, I think Taco Tuesday, and I love tacos, but he was talking about, what was it? It was tires.
Tread on the tires. The A was, I can't even remember anymore. I know the O was for oil. Yeah. So I know the tires and the oil. Man, the A, I'm blanking on what the A was for. They were
Well,
so easy to remember too.
Yeah, our listeners right now are going, "You idiots! It's this, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So go back and listen to it. Interesting on the tires. I've known that in my head
Mm-hmm.
that rotating the tires just helps them last longer. But it was
Right.
good to hear an expert say that, and I actually get mine from America's Tires, and we started that when we lived in California. It was called Discount Tires there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, because I got the tires with them, it's in warranty, and they will rotate them free, so I can go there. I can be working on my sermon notes while they're doing that. But
Yeah.
just it was good to hear Marshall talk about that.
Yeah.
And to talk about the reminder of the oil and just all of these pieces. It's just routine. And if we take care of the small things,
Mm-hmm.
it's the vehicle is going to last longer, and we're just going to get more miles out of it.
Right. And I think that's actually kind of practical in all aspects of life. If you take care of maintain things that you have, not even just material things, but relationships, and we can kind of take that over to all aspects of life. It's just things are going to last longer. Things are going to be better. And that's, especially for me, I drive my car every single day. I think in a year and a half, I put over 50,000 miles on my car now, because I drive all over the city. So yeah, making sure it was actually really encouraging to me, because he said, if I'm going to suggest like one car that's just going to be overall good, it's going to be a Toyota. I was like, yes, because I have a Toyota Corolla and I drive so much. And I was like, okay, good. Because that's one of my worries is, man, I drive so much. Am I even going to have this car before I can pay this off? Because I'm going to drive that thing into the ground. But yeah, I try to keep up with the oil change and the tire rotation on it, and I do a pretty good job of keeping up with that. But yeah, it's, I think it is going back to, I didn't know if you had something that you wanted to say or add first.
Well, you were just talking about the Toyota, and I knew Toyota was good, but I didn't know Toyota. I knew that Hondas and Toyotas were your most reliable vehicles, but it was interesting to hear him say, well, if you've got to pick between those two, go with the Toyota. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And they're going to be a little bit more expensive, but that kind of reminds me of a principle of a job that I had my senior year in college. And I worked in the electronics department at Sears. And it's this principle of you get what you pay for. Now, that's neither good nor bad. It's just, what do you want? And the illustration I would give about stereo systems. And, if I just wanted something at the time to listen to music in the garage, I can get a Spark-O-Matic. There really is a speaker system. I don't know if it's still there. But it was a speaker system called the Spark-O-Matic. If I just want to casually listen to music while I'm working in the garage, Spark-O-Matic will be fine. Yeah. But if I want Dolby Pro Logic surround sound, bass, well, I got to pay more.
Oh, you're going to pay for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I could try it with the Spark-O-Matic, and I'm going to blow it up. So the point being, if you're just looking for something to, casually get around, the cheap car is fine. But if you're looking for something that you can use for the long haul, you're going to invest more money in it, but it is an investment. So there's some good lessons in that.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch on the trophy again, man. I wish I had more trophies like that in my life, and something that's I wish I had the physical representation of it. I feel like it would help me remind me of all the things I've been through that have made me the man I am today. But what stuck out to me was the fact that he had the humility, and I'm sure this was a long time ago too, because he's worked on so many cars since then. He's been doing this a long time. The humility at such a young age to take that, make it a trophy of, this is what I've been through. I made it through. Now look at what I'm doing, and whereas I think most people, including myself, would be like, I want to forget all about that failure, leave it in the past.
Right.
You know, but I liked that that was just something that really stuck out to me, that he made a physical, memento to that failure. And
I think even with that, there's this principle of, he said he was self-taught, and I never heard him say that he took auto mechanics in high school. I remember when I graduated from Tascosa High School up in Amarillo, Texas, they it was a big high school. They had an auto mechanics curriculum. I don't know if high schools still do that or not, but the point being, he learned it on his own. And I think an application there to the young men, to the guys, is figure it out. You're smart guys. Now, we're created different. I am never going to figure out, nuclear energy. I'm never going to figure out,
Yeah.
chemical, electrical pulses, whatever. But if I put some work into it, there's going to be trial and error, but I can figure things out. And
Yeah.
it was neat to hear Marshall talk about that. And where he is today is because of trial and error.
Right. Yeah. And I think you kind of touched on this, figuring out maybe this isn't for me, but it kind of having that discernment of knowing, okay, maybe I'm not gifted here, but also that kind of pushing through, and then you get through the other side and you've learned a lot and you can take that and keep going, keep moving forward with it.
So in the discussion, we also talked about his faith. And I made the observation that a lot of times guys and a lot of times people in the world today, they have something that philosophers or theologians or just people in general might call the sacred versus the secular. In politics, they say separation of church and state. And the truth of the kingdom of God is that everything's sacred. When I'm fixing a car and I'm doing it with God in mind, with the attitude of, I want to do the best job I can. There's some theology in that. And it was fun to hear him talk about the little ways that his faith comes into the way that he treats his staff, the way he treats his customers, that it's not driven by, hey, I want to make a bunch of money. It was driven by, this is who I am. This is what I believe.
Yeah.
And his actions flow out of what he believes.
Yeah. And I think another interesting aspect that Marshall brought up was, because I think everybody sees faith differently and kind of how they come to it. And it was interesting to see how God had used his experience with cars, all these parts and knowing these things, and kind of use that to help him kind of understand in a physical way what faith is to him. Does that make sense? Like he talked about the parts, and he's like, that all come together with a design with the creator. Well, this part by itself doesn't do anything, but all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I thought that was really cool that God really uses our life experiences, uses different things in each and every person to really get them to understand or to come to the knowledge of him. So I just thought it was really cool to hear his perspective on that.
That also reminds me of what the true church is. The church is not a building; it's not a club. The real biblical idea of a church is a group of people who are called out of the world to God. So it's the people. And Paul likens the church not to a car, not to a Lamborghini or a Maserati, but to the human body, in that we have different pieces, different abilities. And one of the things that Marshall supports is a young man who is a mechanic, and he uses his ability to fix cars, to give to women that they have no means whatsoever and they need help. So in the body of Christ, we all have different gifts and abilities, and we function better when we're working together, honoring each other's abilities and living in the reality that we need each other. So we all have to step up and do our own part, but then we have the blessing of receiving from everybody doing their own part.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something I'm kind of learning to appreciate, because, as a proud teenager / younger man, I always thought my way of thinking.
You're a man, Matthias. You're a man.
I'm talking about before. I'm talking about before. Back before, I was like, oh, the way people should think the same way I do on this. They're wrong. I'm right. But it's as I'm getting older and learning where my strengths and weaknesses are, and seeing where people are stronger in areas where I'm weaker, and how the body of Christ really fills up and is just, we work together. Like Paul, I think as Paul talks about, can the eye do what the ear does? And, so is the body of Christ is, one person's this, one person's that, and talking about like this, like the podcast, like I'm not a very outgoing person. I couldn't do what you do on a Sunday morning and preach in front of a bunch of people. That's just not a gift God gave me. But I know how to put things together. I like, and I'm not creative in a like artistic sense. I can't draw to save my life. My daughter can draw way better than I can, and she's 7. But I have a vision, and I can think of how things are going to play out, and I'm like, okay, I can create that. So it's like I've got my own strengths, and I can help create this. But you're good at talking. You're good at speaking with people, and kind of knowing how to steer that conversation or direction, or So it's just I've grown to appreciate where I'm weak and others are strong, and kind of recognizing that. So I just thought it was I like that you brought that up.
The other thing, maybe in relationship to Marshall's willingness to try, learn, be self-taught, was the idea of patience. And patience is a quality that men need to have.
Yeah.
We live in a culture of self-gratification and instant gratification. And you look at the auto industry. I mean, you can go all the way back to Ford, and putting the Model T and putting all these things together. The story of Ferrari and Lamborghini, the patience to pay attention to the detail, to keep on going, because you try to do it fast, you're going to break something. And, thinking back to our discussion last week about the rise and fall of the BSA and what young men still need to learn, I remember a slogan that I picked up from an older boy there, was that haste makes waste. Yeah. And we were doing a competition to see who can get, a tower built first, or whatever it was. And you've got to slow down and think about it, and be willing to, maybe that's it, to be willing to put the time in. Yeah. And as you do that, the end result is going to be so much better. And you can apply that even as you grow older, as you get married. The best days of a marriage, I hear this all over the place, and I'm seeing this too. The best days of a marriage aren't a couple of years after you say I do. It's decades into it. So patience and playing for the, kind of a football or maybe athletic term, playing for the long game. Yeah. It's not just the first quarter. It's all the way till the final second. And for life, it's all the way until our final breath, just pushing hard, being patient all the way to the very end.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to what Marshall was saying about the, his trophies. He messed up because he was impatient, got the timing belts wrong, destroyed his engine, right? And it all came from impatience. And I know that I can relate to that. I'm sure anybody watching, listening to this can also relate to that. There's probably been lots of things, and I can look back in my own life, but lots of things in life get messed up because of our lack of patience. We want it then, we want it now. We think we have it right. We're rushing, and it comes out wrong. I can think back in school with tests, I'm trying to rush through and I get answers wrong. Or if I'm editing a video and I'm like, instead of taking the time to really maybe be creative or think about a different way I want to approach this or that, I just want to get this out. Well, then the message, the tone, everything falls flat, or it doesn't come out exactly how I wanted. So, I think there's a value in learning that patience, like I've said before. And I'm talking to viewers right now that I'm sure people are like me. You think you're patient, you think you're gentle, you think you're this, you think you're that. Get married, and you're going to learn that you're wrong. Yeah. But yeah, so there's a lot to learn about patience, I would say, in life. A lot of mistakes to make that help you make you patient.
Well, here's what I think I want to do right now. And I hadn't planned on this, talking about the challenge. And I had planned on this, but thinking about the trophy and what you said earlier, Matthias, that I'm willing to bet that if we guys will sit down, maybe we need a cup of coffee, maybe we need, Diet Coke, but someplace sit down and pen and paper and just think about the lessons that you've learned over the past year, 5 years. Some of us are going to go back 20 years, but to think back and probably there's going to be a trophy in there someplace. Maybe it's something where you have the memory of the event, and you can make a trophy and then take that and put it up on a bookshelf, put it someplace where you can see that. Maybe you can go out and hike, get out in God's creation and find a rock and take that rock and put it on your bookcase or put it on the dash of your car. Yeah. And maybe that could be a trophy to remember the life lesson where you weren't patient, or you got frustrated and tore something up. So the first challenge I want to get is look for trophies. Look for trophies. And then I just want to challenge guys to change your oil. Change your oil. I've not done it in years, and maybe that's because I'm 56 and I can afford to get it done. But I would say do it at least once, and at the very minimum, I just want to challenge everybody. If you cannot do anything else, change your own air filter. That is so easy. You can go to Walmart. They've got books, vehicle, year, make. It will tell you the number of the air filter you need. Buy it, go it out there, loosen the wing nut and pull that thing off, get the old one out, throw it away, put another one in there. So the challenge is look for trophies and then try it. Change your oil. And if you're not going to do that, at the very minimum, matter of fact, don't even show up next week unless you're willing to change your own air filter, just so you can say, I've done it. Mm-hmm. That's the challenge. I think, guys, if you will do that, you will be encouraged that you may never be a car guru like Marshall, but you can say, by golly, I have changed my own air filter. And I'm one of the few guys that have learned how to change my oil as well.
There you go. Yeah. Don't change your brakes unless you want to put life on extra hard mode. Well, everybody, thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, make sure to follow on the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcast from. Apple Podcasts and Apple Music. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see y'all next week. Be strong.
Be strong.